We find ourselves in the month of October as the year 2020 draws to a much-needed close. This has been one of the worst years imaginable for a lot of people, myself included. But before the year draws to an end, we are going to talk about much more content, including that of an album that I wanted to talk about for a very long time, but was unable to do so due to motivational and family issues. That is, of course, S&M2 by Metallica. The second in the Symphony Live series. This is a sequel live album to the original 1999 S&M, right here, and both were recorded with the San Francisco Symphony Orchestra. So, to get down to it, this is a 20-year anniversary recording, S&M2, with songs that were released after the original S&M primarily, although there are many songs that were on the original S&M that make a second appearance, such as No Leaf Clover, such as For Whom the Bell Tolls, Master of Puppets, Enter Sandman, and basically most of their hits. So what can you say other than the fact that more is better? And it's very interesting to take the two recordings, live from 1999 and live from 2019, and pit them against each other to see if the band has improved. And let me just say, musicianship-wise and vocally speaking, Metallica has improved immensely, tenfold, in spades, however you want to say it. James Hetfield has mastered his gruff, gritty vocal style, and he doesn't even need the reverb that he needed in the 1980s for that added vocal ability. In my opinion, James Hetfield's vocals were the best on Master of Puppets and And Justice for All, just having the extra grit in And Justice for All, and mastering the effects of the reverb and his voice just perfectly, not too much of the other, on Master of Puppets. So this is a much-needed comeback. Some of the songs on Saint Anger and Death Magnetic didn't exactly have the best vocal appearances from James Hetfield, and this album fixes that with the songs that appeared on those respective albums. And Hardwired to Self-Destruct is no slouch either, as this album features songs like Confusion and Halo on Fire. Halo on Fire probably being my favorite of the two. Never really cared much for Confusion, but I will save my in-depth analysis for my review of Hardwired to Self-Destruct whenever I get around to doing that. But when it comes to the live symphony appearances here, you got a couple of interesting notes here. On the original album right here, no songs from Kill 'Em All appeared in any way, shape, or format. You had one song, or two songs actually, off Ride the Lightning, and that was Call of Cthulhu and For Whom the Bell Tolls. For Whom the Bell Tolls, of course, being my favorite track on S&M aside from No Leaf Clover. So you got that. You had two new songs, No Leaf Clover and Minus Human, on the original S&M, and unfortunately, there are no new tracks on this album, with the exception of, and I actually have to look at the back of here because you can actually read it. Unlike here, where you could hardly read the set list, and they were actually just abbreviations. So they actually changed this for the better, the track listing on the back. So, Intro to Scythian Suite. Intro to Scythian Suite and Scythian Suite Opus 22. So when it comes to that, and of course, there was another one, The Enemy of God and the Dance of the Dark Spirits, and Iron Foundry Opus 19. So there were a couple of new compositions that were done by the San Francisco Symphony Orchestra, but all in all, there are no new Metallica songs on this album. And that is one thing that I would like to point out and single out for praise, is the addition of the songs that are solely from the San Francisco Symphony Orchestra. They are absolutely brilliant. They have an immense build-up, and it's just really fun to listen to when it comes down to it. Intro to the Scythian Suite and the Iron Foundry. I'm sorry, I'm just having a little bit of a hard time remembering the names of those two because I've only listened to them a handful of times, but they are absolutely brilliant. So, really the only criticism and critique that I can have on this album is rooted in two things: the track listing and the composition of the songs that are on this album, because the majority of the songs that were found on the original S&M appear pretty much more or less exactly the same on S&M2, and that is a shame, just given the fact that they had a lot of stuff to work with. The least they could have done was put in a different composition or a different orchestration for the San Francisco Orchestra to play along with to the original songs. Now, I'm not saying go all in and change the entire song format and the structure of the songs. I'm just saying give us something a little bit different. But it does, at the same time, go to show how much James Hetfield has improved as a vocalist and how much the band has come together with the addition of Rob Trujillo over Jason Newsted, who was kind of always the new guy. Even though I personally prefer Newsted over Rob Trujillo, I think Rob Trujillo definitely is better chemistry. He fits better with the band, and I think that they have improved tenfold immensely since the release of Death Magnetic when it comes down to it. So with this album, it's kind of a mixed bag. I mean, I absolutely love it. It shows that they can take what was originally there and add to it in a way that doesn't necessarily seem like a retread when it comes down to it. But the songs that were actually on the original S&M sound more or less the same. But when it comes to the idea of it and the way that James Hetfield sings these songs and the way that, say, Kirk Hammett plays them, and just the overall composition and the structure, it doesn't seem derivative as much as, say, some of the songs on the original. So when I talk about some of the songs on the sequel that are better than the songs on the original, I'm talking about certain songs that I will single out right now. Songs like The Memory Remains. That is the biggest one. And in my opinion, The Call of Cthulhu is played a little bit faster, a little bit harder, heavier. Maybe that's due to the way that the guitars were tuned. S&M had sort of a soft Bloom style production and approach to it when it came down to mastering the original live recordings that I did notice. And James's style of singing kind of irked me on that album. This one sounds more key to what the band was playing in the 1980s, for example, and of course now. And just the addition of some of the band's greatest hits, such as Anesthesia, Pulling Teeth, and of course the greatest hits after the release of Saint Anger, are a welcome change. All Within My Hands, I have to talk about All Within My Hands too. They add a little bit of an acoustic take on it, as well as making it one of the most melodic songs on the album. It is one of my favorites, and I never thought I would say that about a song that was released initially on Saint Anger. Even though that is one of my favorites on Saint Anger, I didn't think that I would like it as much as I did compared with the rest of Metallica's albums and songs that are featured on S&M2 that I have underneath S&M1 right here. So, overall, what do I think of S&M2 as an album? It is definitely a welcome change to the Metallica format. I definitely think that it was a very necessary album when it came to releasing it as a sort of anniversary thing for S&M. S&M is one of the most legendary live albums in existence when it comes to sort of combining it with the San Francisco Symphony Orchestra. Kiss did the same thing in 2003 with Symphony Alive 4. So it sort of started the trend of combining rock and metal with symphony as sort of a just melodic approach to traditionally heavier bands. So it was very interesting, and it paved the way for a lot of different things, and this is just sort of paying homage to it. So whether or not I like it better than the original remains to be seen. I'd have to listen to it maybe for another couple months to come up with that conclusion, and of course listen to the original and compare and contrast. But all I can say right now is that I am going to give this album a 9.5 out of 10. It is really good, exceptional, and I highly recommend that anyone who is on the fence pick it up and listen to it. This is Midnight Strike 3625. Keep calm and rock on.